This is Archie down here. People are always coming up to us saying you're gorgeous, and they're always talking about the dog. I don't mind. So, yeah, he does a little bit of singing sometimes. So, Archie, shh. So I've been asked to come and talk to you about technology and the empowering potential of technology for people with disabilities, but also, and probably more importantly, that technology isn't actually something that you have to have 20/20 vision for, that you have to have, all the use of all your fingers or arms. There are so many different ways that what you can do can be done in an inclusive way so that everybody can use it, regardless of any particular impairment or need that they may have. So my name's Robin Christopherson, and I'm Head of Digital Inclusion at AbilityNet. For those of you who don't know who AbilityNet are, we're a charity, a technology charity, and we deal with all things technology, from really high-tech stuff to tweaking the response of your mouse, for example, and all areas of disability, including dyslexia and age-related conditions. Any of you guys that have wrist or arm pain, headache on a Friday afternoon, then get in touch with us and we can help you out. So I've got my JAWS screen reading software, this lady talking at the front, so if you could just put up with her talking to me, that's how I use a computer. And later on, when we've got some audio on video clips and things, I'll plug in the external audio so that you guys can hear that, but you'll probably get a blast of my lady from time to time as well. I will show a range of video clips and things, and I'll tweet them all, including links to apps that I'll show you straight away after the presentation using RocketConf 16. I think there's a 16 at the end of the hashtag, isn't there? I think there has to be. Yeah. So I'll do it with RocketConf 16 straight away afterwards. I'll also email them to Toki so that if people want them, they can get them from her as well. So just start off with a few slides, and then when they're out of the way, then we'll get on to some more exciting stuff. So just a bit of scene setting. Back in the 80s, with the advent of the personal computer, everything changed for people with disabilities, but also more broadly. So 90% of jobs in the UK today use a computer of some shape or form. And here we've got a very traditional setup. Which side's the screen on? That's correct. Yeah? I have a habit of kind of like this, and if I'm looking the wrong way, then I look like a bit of an idiot. So yeah, so back in the 80s, with the advent of the personal computer, things suddenly became, the options, the choices for people with disabilities really opened up. And that's because all of the things that you can see there have many, many different choices. So we've got a normal monitor here, but you could have a really big monitor, a 25-inch iMac or something. If you needed to have, bigger text, for example, you can also increase the text size on the screen. You can use the built-in magnification software, for example. I use speech output, so I don't need to use the screen at all. Other people might not be able to use a standard keyboard. They might need an ergonomic keyboard, or they might need to use voice recognition. Standard mice, you can use keystroke alternatives, because I can't see the arrow on the screen. I'm doing keystroke alternatives for things that you guys are probably clicking on the mouse for. And by the way, keystroke alternatives are a very, very productive, efficient way of controlling your computer. I've often, I've done F7 to run a spell check in Word, for example, before people whose hands are on the keyboard, you've even half reached for the mouse, let alone grabbed it, moved it, clicked on the ribbon, clicked on this, clicked on that to launch the spell checker, for example. So keystroke alternatives are a very efficient way of operating your computer, and as is voice recognition, for example. So a lot of these things that are alternatives, either out of preference or necessity for people who have special needs in this area, don't have to be a poorer choice, second choice. They can actually be, really, really productive and efficient as well. And even the tower that we see here looks really old-fashioned now, doesn't it? The computer could be built into the screen, it could be in your pocket, connected via Bluetooth, it could be in the cloud, halfway across the world, whatever it might be. But because there are so many different I/O choices, that really, really opened up a lot of doors for people with disabilities. Is this doing something? Hit the spacebar. And then a few years ago, the next revolution came along, which was the smartphone revolution. And actually, that had an even bigger impact, because now you've got all the computer smarts in your pocket with you all of the time. And not only that, you've got a lot of other smarts in there as well. You've got a lot of other sensors like camera, accelerometer, GPS, compass, that sort of thing. And when your own senses don't work, to have sensors like a camera for people who are blind, I'll show you how I use the camera very extensively on my phone a little bit later on, was incredibly empowering. Now, you guys may have 20/20 vision, I don't know, but with the advent of the small screen, things really did change, and obviously we're in a mobile-first world now. You absolutely can't ignore mobile, and so a lot of your customers, they're going to be accessing your content, your functionality, on really very small screens. So what we've got here is a standard-sized phone. We don't all have massive phones yet. And somebody who needs to use reading glasses, or perhaps maybe you guys, you're having to hold your screens or your paper books further and further away, and at some point your arms won't be long enough to be able to see without reading glasses, etc. So think about accessibility, because if you make something easy to see, good color contrast, a decent default font size, a good choice of font to make it sort of very legible and readable, then you're going to be helping these people who are now extreme computer users. It's a bright sunny day, it's a small shiny piece of glass, they might be on the move, etc. So if you think about accessibility as helping people into a point where you've got extreme usability, extreme inclusion, you're going to be helping these people too. So here we've got a picture of somebody with a phone in one hand and a cup of coffee in the other hand. Now, he might be on his coffee break. He might have, say, 90 seconds to complete a transaction from start to finish. And if you haven't got extreme UX in your interfaces, in your applications, your functionality, then that person might not be able to complete that transaction in the time that he's got available. And he might not come back to you later on. He might go somewhere else. And that extreme UX is what somebody with a learning difficulty, for example, or dyslexia, makes things a little bit slower, needs 24/7, regardless of how much time they have. So if somebody's got a learning disability, if you can make it extremely usable for people who have got very little time, like this chap, then it's going to help those people as well. Now, he's also got a cup of coffee in his hand here, so maybe he's using it one-handed. He's literally only got one hand, and he's juggling it, and he's moving along, walking along, for example. Then he's also temporarily motor impaired, because he's trying to touch things with his thumb, for example. And again, if you can follow the guidelines, the accessibility guidelines about not having tappable areas too close together, respecting that minimum, I think it's 44 by 44 px font hotspot size, then you're going to be helping people like this who are temporarily motor impaired. And guess what? You're going to be helping people who are permanently motor impaired with multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's, just getting old, that sort of thing. So hopefully you're beginning to get the picture. I was hoping to get a picture of somebody with abnormally mutant sausage fingers, but I couldn't find one. So just imagine that this person's got huge fingers, okay? Because some people do. And we're not all using massive phones yet, as I mentioned before. So, somebody could be using a 3.5, 4-inch phone, and they've got big fingers, okay? Just imagine. Again, this person, even when they're not on the move with their cup of coffee in the other hand, they are wanting that good UI. So having things separated with white space, as I mentioned before, not having really time dependent or having to hit moving targets, that sort of thing. So, and again, that will help people who have a motor impairment 24/7 as well. Slide 6, cars and mobile snow mix. So what we've got here is a picture of a blank phone screen in a car. And that's because I would invite you to think of the UI, the I/O in a car situation to be like this, that you can't in effect access the screen. We all use, sat navs and things like Waze, where you start it, you set it up before you go, and then you might glance from time to time at the screen, or you might rely on speech output, for example, the lady telling you when to turn, etc. And if the sun's on the screen, then you might not see the screen, and you'd be wholly reliant on the speech output. And then, of course, we've got Amazon's Echo, Google at Google I/O last week, they announced the Home Hub, which is their equivalent of the Echo. And these are headless UIs. There's no screen associated with these at all. So it's, totally speech in, speech out. So what would your content and functionality look like in that scenario? Are you going to be with the choices you make today, limiting the I/O options for people, for all of your customers, when they start moving over to these sort of platforms in the future. And if you make it speech friendly and gesture operated or voice command operated, etc., then you're going to be helping people to be able to access your content in the car in this sort of situation.
Slide 7. Many mobile users do have a disability. Disabled.
So the smartphone, disabled people love their smartphones. They are very, very inclusive. Have a look at the accessibility settings in your phone and you'll be really, really surprised. And blind people in particular, I used to have to carry around so many gadgets: a talking GPS, 750 quid, a talking note taker, 1,500 quid, a talking light detector, 75 quid, a talking barcode scanner, 150 quid. I had to carry a backpack around with me to carry all my gadgets, and now I have all of that and so much more just in my phone. And all of the apps that do those jobs are either free or 99p or a few pounds, something like that. So we've really moved on. And so the level of functionality of these apps, and combined with smartphones, is incredibly empowering and really democratizing access for people who often don't have as much disposable income as others. Someone like Professor Hawking, who was one of the first people that AbilityNet assessed for his technology, he could use a smartphone. There is scanning, there is single switch operation. He uses his cheek, I think, to press a switch to control his communication device and to write his scientific papers, etc. And his speech output, for example, is very recognizable. He hasn't upgraded it to the sexy lady that I've got, but he'd probably want a bloke's voice as well, thinking about it. But that's instantly recognizable as him, isn't it? So that's probably why he's never going to move away from his Dynavox synthesizer that he has. But because technology is so inclusive potentially, then someone like him would be able to have the choice of the full range of devices, including Android. I've probably mentioned or have pictures of iDevices, and that's because they're particularly inclusive. But even an entry-level Android would have a built-in screen reader, magnification software. I'm not sure if it can do full scanning. He'd probably have to stick with an iDevice if he wanted to just use a single switch. But these are very, very inclusive devices. So here we've got a picture of the settings area of the iPhone. I think this is the 4. So way back, even when the 4 came out, there was really very powerful accessibility features. And as far as testing, for example, if you want to make sure or see what your content sounds like, whether you can interact with it successfully using speech output, for example, then go into these settings, turn on VoiceOver, and scroll right down to the bottom of the accessibility settings and assign the triple-click home shortcut to VoiceOver, for example. And then, you can use your phone just normally. You can bring up a web page or an app that you're working on, triple-click the home button to bring VoiceOver in, and then just tap on things or swipe through the screen and make sure that everything's spoken properly, you've labeled all your buttons, etc. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to ask for a volunteer, to a quick demonstration. So I'll just fire up an app called Talking Goggles. Open Talking Goggles. So this app.
Would you like Talking Tuna, a tiny iTunes 12 Days of Christmas button.
Sorry, hang on a sec.
Notes. Page 2. FaceTime. 12 days. 12 days. 2040. 95 activity.
I don't know if you can hear this.
Amazon Video. Calculate podcast. Watch. Game Center. Extras folder. Goggles.
Okay. So can I have a volunteer?
Button. Record.
All I'd like you to do is grab my phone here and just point it up at the screen. Who'd like to do that for me? Somebody from the front row? Good boy. Nice one, thanks.
Right, point it at the screen.
Yeah, you might need to go down off the stage and point it up at the projector.
Okay,
Archie,
right.
Archie, down, down, down.
Point it at the screen.
It should say something. Archie.
Right.
So you can see the picture on the screen.
Yeah, I can see the picture, yeah.
Sorry.
So no close image matches found.
Just hold it.
Oh, it's got it now.
Oh. Eiffel Tower?
Eiffel Tower.
Okay, we'll do the next one, just one more. Thanks.
Slide 11. You can recognize text.
So this isn't a picture, this is just some text. Archie. Shh.
Yeah, did you pick that up?
Did it say it can recognize text too?
It's saying you can recognise text.
Because an email came in at the same time, so it kind of went over the top.
Yeah.
Okay? Did people hear that? Okay, thanks.
Okay.
That's great. Archie, shh. Yeah, thank you so much. So basically, this is an app
Can recognize text too.
called Talking Goggles. This is an app called Talking Goggles. It's a mainstream app. You guys can get it in both the iOS and Android App Store. I think with ads it's free, otherwise it's like 79p or something. Now this is a mainstream app. It's designed to just allow you to point it at anything in a supermarket, for example, off the shelf, and it will tell you what it is. You can tap on it for more information, depending on what data it can access at the time about that particular product, and also whether you've got your location services turned on. It can also, for example, tell you where you can buy it more cheaply around the corner. So this is a mainstream app designed to help people to just, it's a convenience to be able to get more information about a particular product. But because what it does is it searches the internet for matches to any image that it can see, it's incredibly useful for people with disabilities. So with dyslexia, for example, to be able to read, it could recognize that text. What it's doing there is OCR, optical character recognition. It's looking at the squiggles and it's trying to decide what letters they are. And so it will read that back to someone with dyslexia or a vision impairment. I use it when I'm out and about. If I'm walking in front of a row of shops, I can point it at the shop faces and it will tell me if I'm in front of Marks and Spencer's or Poundland or whatever it might be. I can point it at street signs, etc. I can point it at my mail or packages that I take out of my cupboards at home to tell me what they are. So that's incredibly empowering. It's a mainstream app, but because it's done in an inclusive way, all the buttons are labeled properly, so I know I can operate it successfully. And that extra convenience of just speaking out what comes up on the screen, what's recognized, is incredibly empowering too. I sometimes bring in a little Vaseline tub of my wife's, which is a circular tin, and I point it at it. I couldn't find it this morning. And because it's circular, I have no idea what the orientation of it is, and it still gets it right. So this sort of live image recognition it's doing, it's looking at what's in the camera, it's going away and trawling the internet, it's trying to compare it to every single image on the internet, regardless of orientation, and it comes back and tells you what it is. So that level of sophistication, which if you've got a smart device already, you can get for free or 79p, is incredibly empowering. And we'll look at a couple more of those now.
Recognize text to slide 11 of 11.
I'll just close that.
Rocket com. To word length dash real dash time.
So I'll plug in the audio. Here's another app called WordLens. It used to be a standalone app, but then it was bought by Google, and it's now free in the Google Translate app, which you can get on both Android and iOS. So let's just fire this up.
VLC.
Turn that down a bit. So what it's doing, obviously, is it's this OCR that we saw a moment ago with Talking Goggles. It's recognizing text that you point the camera at, whether it's a menu or a poster or a street sign, and it's automatically recognizing and then translating it into whichever language you specified. But the real magic comes in, and I'm sure you agree, is where it's trying to retain the format, the look and feel of the original document. So it's like augmented reality, where it sort of changes in front of your eyes whilst, making it look like the original. So that's incredibly useful for people with dyslexia, for whom, dealing with a pocket phrase book in another country would be really tough, or someone with a vision impairment or blind like myself. So these, again, mainstream technologies, but because the app is done in an inclusive way, all the controls are properly labeled, etc., then it can be a very inclusive, empowering option for people with impairments as well.
3-8 blind date with an iPhone dash tempo.
Here's another one I'm going to show. I've got a very annoying habit of only showing the first parts of different videos that I'm going to show you, and that's partly because of time. And I will, as I said before, send around links to them all straight away afterwards if you follow the hashtag or me at USA Today. But it's also in this case because it gets a bit saucy later on this one. Okay, so I'm only going to show the first part of this one. It's about a lady who's on a blind date, well, a man and a lady, but she's temporarily disabled. She's got laryngitis and lost her voice, so she's using her smartphone and a communication app on it, in this case a specialist communication app designed for people who have a communication difficulty. But because she's temporarily disabled, she's using it to great effect on this blind date. I'll just skip over the titles.
Docs. Items view multi.
Oh, does that not come up?
Notes.txt. 3 of 4.
What did I do there? Sorry.
Rocket conference. 6 joules K rolling flash webs. A blind date with an iPhone.
Does that come up right? Thanks.
Hey, I'm sorry I was late. Okay. I'm sorry I'm late. Parking was crazy. I haven't been here before, but
That's okay. It's nice to finally meet you.
it's good to meet you. That came out of your iPhone.
Yeah, I have laryngitis. So I will be communicating through my new iVoice application. I programmed all of my responses for the night.
Okay, you mean you're writing it down somehow and it's reading it back to me.
No, all my responses are pre-programmed for tonight.
So you know everything I'm going to say tonight?
Well, I know how I'm going to respond to everything you are going to say tonight.
Okay then, what's my favorite color?
I don't know what your favorite color is, silly.
But you knew I was going to say, what's my favorite color?
I knew I was going to respond. I don't know what your favorite color is, silly.
Well, it's blue, in case you were wondering.
Oh, my brother's favorite color is blue too.
Okay, hold on. If you knew your brother's favorite color was blue too, then you would know my favorite color is blue when I asked you what's my favorite color moments ago. Because I'm the two. I'm the two in that statement you made.
I have to go to the bathroom.
All right.
Have a look at that one. It's a good video clip.
Rocket
So-
conference. 7 flicker hazard dash trace it. 6 joules K rolling flash. 5 capture dash inaccessible. 4 capture dash.
Okay, great. Found my place again. So hopefully you've got the idea that there is this huge blurring of a distinction between accessibility for disabled people and for everybody else. So it's really important that when you're thinking about accessibility, you do it right from square one, because it's for everybody. And if you try to retrofit it at a later stage, you're probably not going to achieve it, and it's going to be a lot more expensive and time-consuming. So hopefully you're getting the idea that accessibility is for everybody, particularly in this mobile-first world, and it's something you really shouldn't ignore. People are using these technologies all the time, regardless of whether they've got a temporary or permanent disability. In fact, in the States, the disabled community have a phrase for the able-bodied community, which is TABS, which stands for temporarily able-bodied, which means that, we're an aging population and the prevalence of disability is actually increasing. And so if we're all temporarily able-bodied, then it'll get us all in the end, whether it's temporarily or, just because we're aging and things stop working as well. So I'd like briefly now to get you guys to do a little bit of work, if that's okay. So hopefully you'll all have a pen or paper available. If not, can you just whip out your phone and open up the Notes app? And what we're going to do is we're going to try and recognize an audio capture. I'll just start this up. So what we've got on the screen here is one of those audio captures, the distorted images, and that's so that the OCR software that we looked at earlier can't successfully recognize the image. I can't obviously see that, so we're going to play an audio one, which is what you usually get when you click on the wheelchair symbol, which is a slightly odd choice of icon. But anyway, so I would get an audio alternative, and that's distorted too, so that voice recognition software can't successfully recognize it. So these capture images, which thankfully are becoming less commonly used these days, are literally an accessibility catch-22. They are designed not to be machine readable and hence translatable into a different sort of input or output method. So, are you ready? Have you got something to... Yeah? Okay, great. So what we're going to do is it's going to repeat it twice. I'd like you to try your absolute hardest to successfully write down the code. You'll hear it twice, and then afterwards we're going to compare it with the person sitting next to you, okay? Here we go.
9, 0, 3, 7, 9, once again, 9, 0, 3, 7, 9, 7, 8,
I'm sure there are some meows in there. But anyway, so yeah, please spend 10 seconds and just compare it with the people around you.
Rocket Conference 2005 Capture-Accessibility.
So, you don't have to shout out because we're British and we're all too inhibited. So put your hand up if you got it the same as your colleagues. I can guarantee, yeah, I don't even need to be able to see to know. So, we're laughing about it, but if you think about it, this is at the end of a transaction process, maybe several screens worth. Archie, come on, down. And, you know, it's a requirement, isn't it? It's mandatory to be able to successfully complete the process. You might have been spending 5 minutes, quarter of an hour, half an hour doing the other screens worth, diligently putting stuff in, dealing with errors, that sort of thing, and then you fall at the final post because you just can't do it. I mean, these are meant for someone like myself, but, you know, none of the people in this room, nobody got the same as everybody else, which means that, you know, we wouldn't be able to successfully pass that capture. Now, this is just an example, this is just an illustration. Please don't think I'm just talking about capture here. I'm actually using this as an example of what inaccessibility feels like. So, you know, we did laugh, but it's dismaying if this is a requirement and you're not able to fulfill that process. For me, the internet is a difficult place. Websites are not accessible. Images aren't labeled. I can't tab through things because the JavaScript doesn't allow them to gain keyboard focus, etc. There are so many things that make the web a very hostile place for people with a range of different impairments. And as we saw before, by definition, all of your other customers who are on a mobile platform, for example, as well, or in extreme user situations. So, yeah, please don't think of this as just being about capture. It's illustrative of a broader picture, and hopefully it gave you a tiny flavor of what inaccessibility feels like firsthand. So we've got another capture image up on the screen there.
Slide 2.
Just to sort of finish off the thought about capture, if you must use capture, then use something like textcapture.com, for example, which has got a very robust API. I think it's free for the first 2,000 calls each day. It just uses very simple logic questions, which bots aren't clever enough yet to successfully complete. And then you probably know about Google's no capture, which is fine on desktops, but doesn't work on mobile, so that's a bit of a showstopper, really. So I'd go for textcapture.com. If you must use capture, but there are lots of other ways around that as well.
Rocket Conference 2006 Jules K. Rowling.
So let's very quickly look at another couple of examples of what accessibility and inaccessibility looks like. So J.K. Rowling's website is completely in Flash, and I'm hoping that you guys have moved away very significantly from Flash now. But we'll see, the thing about Flash is that you don't get accessibility free of charge at all. You have to put in a lot of effort to layer it on top. So we're going to look at two versions of her site. She actually went to the extreme of creating a second alternative version, which is screen reader compatible, and it also uses subtitles to bring up on screen the sound effects of like the dog barking and the owl hooting and that sort of thing. So we'll watch a little bit of this.
VLC Media.
J.K. Rowling. Official site. W.O.M.B.A.T. Student identification card. Unlabeled 11 button. Left parent wizard's ordinary magic and basic aptitude test right parent. 1 button. Student identification code : 3 button. 2 button. 4 button.
So that was pretty incomprehensible to me.
J.K. Rowling. Official site. Tab. Open accessibility tools button. Tab. Mobile phone. Click here to pick up the phone button. Mobile phone. Click here to pick up the phone. Tab. Wombat button. Tab. Scrapbook button. Tab. Diary dash open biography button. Tab. Wizard of the month button. Tab. Newspaper dash open rumors button. Tab. Paperclips dash open frequently asked questions button.
probably heard the word tab in there as well. You probably couldn't understand any of that, could you? Sorry. So there was the word tab quite a lot in there as well, and that's because the person was tabbing through. In the main site, it didn't even support keyboard focus at all. You couldn't tab through it at all. So we were just arrowing down through it with the screen reader's functionality.
Rocket Conference 2007 Flickr Hazard Dash Tray.
Here's another quick video
VLC.
clip. Multimedia is obviously incredibly important these days, and what we're seeing here is a tool from the Trace Center to test flicker and luminosity. So this is for people with epilepsy, photosensitive epilepsy, and what you're seeing here is we're playing a heavy rock track in Windows Media Player, but we're sparing you the audio of the rock track. And the visualization in Windows Media Player is doing all this swirling and stuff. And we've chosen one that doesn't quite peek out into the red, you can probably see there. So what it's doing, this could be any video, we just pick this as an example, and it will test whether your videos are flashing or flickering in that dangerous 2 to 55 hertz range that is difficult for people with epilepsy. So yeah, if you've got videos that have flashing, flickering, bright lights, large areas of changing luminosity, then run it through this tool and make sure it's not going to be a problem. There was a very high-profile case of the Olympics 2012 promo videos. Beforehand, somebody diving into a pool and the sun flickering on the water of the swimming pool gave a lot of people around the country epileptic fits. So that was not a good thing to do, and you certainly don't want your ad campaigns or the videos on your website or in the halls of your physical premises as well, you know, in the lobbies, etc., to cause that sort of a problem.
Rocket Conference 8 Google Dash Tools for auto captions and
I think we're running a little bit behind. So I'm not going to show this one, but I'll send a link round. Basically, subtitling, adding subtitles to your videos is incredibly important, but also very time-consuming. And this video shows that Google has utilities. If you upload the video, even if you're not going to put the video on YouTube eventually, if you upload the video to YouTube and you get it to do automatic captions, automatic subtitles, then it will make lots of mistakes because it's doing voice recognition, which we know isn't perfect. But then you can download the .sbv file, the caption file, and that then will have all the timestamps in it for when the words should go up on the screen and how long they should stay up for. And that's the really time-consuming bit. All of that's done, and the text will have some errors in it, which you can just clean up in Notepad or whatever it might be. And you can do it in minutes. Even like an hour-long video, you can get through in 5 minutes instead of hours that it would take using other utilities. So have a look at that one. And you know, once you've got that caption file, that SBV file, you can upload it along with your video to wherever you want the video to go ultimately. So that's a really useful one.
9 BBC audio description.
Staying with multimedia for a while because it is quite a challenge. What we're going to show you now is the BBC actually put this demonstration video together. It's of somebody watching TV, but you don't see the TV, you just see their face. And the audio description is what someone like myself as a blind user relies on to know what's going on. We certainly wouldn't be able to follow a television program if it wasn't for audio description, and hopefully you'll get a flavour of that here.
VLC.
It's night. A 30-something male awakes beside an attractive lady.
What on earth?
Her father enters.
Run!
He runs from the bed and opens a window. He jumps. He runs across a road. A car swerves to miss him. He runs into a forest. The girl's father, now armed, chases him with a pack of dogs. He tumbles down a hill, into a road. A car races towards him. It brakes just in time. The door opens. It's the girl. He gets in the car and they kiss. They drive into a beautiful sunrise.
Just pause it there. So, how much of that would you have got if it wasn't for the audio description added on top there? You know, there was some dogs barking, there was some gunshots and squealing of brakes, but you certainly wouldn't have been able to, you know, follow the whole story there. So that's audio description. And a lot of the times the videos that you guys might be producing are quite, you know, there's a voiceover already, so they're quite narrative driven. But if you are doing something that, you know, isn't the action within the videos that you're creating aren't supported fully by the voiceover already, then you might want to think about adding in audio description such as that.
Rocket Comfort. 10 Phoenix Dome Gardener.
I'm just going to finish off with a quick video clip of somebody who is jumping off a hot air balloon on the edge of space. And he's trying to win 2 world records this day. This is Felix Baumgartner. And a couple of years ago, he tried to get the highest free fall record and the longest free fall record before opening a parachute. And I'll explain why on earth I'm showing you this video clip after we've seen it. Apologies for the editing. This is when a blind person edits a video.
VLCB.
Release.
Alright, now, the whole road is looking now. I'm going home now.
Jumper away. Speed 725. Showing Felix in a stable descent. And Felix is back to record holder.
So the reason why I'm showing you that is because Felix Baumgartner had this heads-up display. He had like a visor, and it had this really fancy HUD on it with all the instrumentation so that he could see what his altitude was and how fast he was going and that sort of thing, which was fine down on the ground. But when they got up there into the edge of space and he put it on, it instantly misted up, and he couldn't see any of his instrumentation at all. And as a result, he was blind, basically. He jumped off this thing and was hurtling towards the Earth. And I don't blame him at all. He pulled the cord pretty sharpish compared to what he wanted to do. And so he got the highest freefall record because the balloon was 25 miles up. But he didn't get the longest freefall record that day because he didn't know when he was going to splat on the ground. So the reason why I'm bringing this up is because that heads-up display, fantastic, sexy piece of kit, heads-up display on a visor, really cool. But because it hadn't been done in an inclusive way, because all these alternatives of input and output weren't considered, then it failed when it came to the acid test of actually doing it out in the wild. So a similar thing would go for your content, your functionality, your services. If you think about doing things in an inclusive way, in this case, if he'd have built in haptic feedback, so every 1,000 feet or so, he would get a little buzz, or maybe audio output, which someone who's in effect blind would need. He could have earplugs in his ears, and he could have a bone-conducting speaker behind his, a la Google Glass, for example, and that would allow him to hear exactly what's going on. And if he had a way of manipulating those instruments, by his hands or whatever it might be, some control in his gloves or something, then he could know exactly what's going on, even though he hadn't, couldn't see visually the instrumentation. So I'm not saying that what you guys are doing could actually be a life and death sort of scenario like this, but hopefully if you think back to that capture example, it's absolutely horrible if these sort of things aren't inclusive and people are barred. And obviously there is a legal requirement as well, so you could be facing people who, litigation, etc., from the likes of the RNIB, for example, who do class action lawsuits against organisations in the UK. So I'll just bring up the last slide just to
Slide 1.
To close. So that's some of the services that AbilityNet offers. Just to finish off on a personal note, so I mentioned right at the beginning that the PC came along in the 80s, and that was perfect timing for me as a blind person. I was able to do my education, go to university. I had a talking laptop that was the size of a small suitcase, but nevertheless. And I was able to get a job because of technology. I was able to get a job in technology for AbilityNet. And I moved to Warwick, which is a lovely part of the world. People come and see the castle. And because I moved there with work, I actually met a lovely lady, and I've got 2 gorgeous children. So you could say that I owe everything to the technology. Thank you.